Hi, this is Monica Duarte. I'm a brand identity alchemist and spiritual coach. And thank you so much for joining me today. In today's video, I'm going to talk about archetypes and what are archetypes and how to work with them to transform your life and brand from the inside out. But before we get started on that topic, please make sure to subscribe to my channel if you're interested in receiving guidance, spiritual guidance to help transform your life. And then also, if you have a business and you're looking to create a brand that generally connects with your audience, I do make videos about these topics. So if you're interested in receiving more guidance about that, please subscribe so that you'll get more information about that. And always, please make sure to like my videos to help me grow my channel. So if you don't know by now, one of the most powerful and main tools that I use for my services in my business is working with archetypes. And I've worked with archetypes for myself as well. And I actually used, working with archetypes to build my brand. So in this video, I wanted to talk more about archetypes because I know that actually archetypes it's not something that a lot of people know about. But it's very important to learn about them because literally everything is built out of the world of archetypes. So when you can start to understand how the world functions from this plane, then everything starts to make sense, including your life. And then also if you have a business, your brand. So archetypes were discovered by Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. And he discovered that there's particular patterns that repeat throughout history and time. And that's what he called archetypes. So these patterns have a tendency to show up in society and our lives in specific ways. Although, because they have these tendencies, that doesn't mean that that's the only way that they show up. They actually can show up in different ways. But have understanding these tendencies is how you can kind of sense when that archetype is operating. So, in my previous video, I talked about comparing archetypes to the zodiac signs. So I do that because the zodiac is a really easy concept to understand for a lot of people. Like I'm a Gemini, hence, I talk a lot and I talk really fast sometimes. So, when people think, oh, you're a Gemini, then you do this, you do that. Or you're a Leo, then you do this, you do that. So archetypes kind of work the same way, but archetypes actually are more profound and actually, everything about the zodiac sign and even astrology originates from archetypes. Literally everything in this world originates from archetypes, whether we realize it or not. So you can have an archetype that's playing really strongly in your unconscious mind and not know about it. But for those people that have studied archetypes and are aware of how they work, we can see those archetypes operating in you, and we can actually start to kind of predict, not 100%, but sometimes kind of sense who you are as a person, and kind of like, why you like the things that you do, how your mind kind of works on a profound level. And of course, using that information for good is always really important. It's never okay to use transformative tools to hurt somebody or to manipulate. Like that's not okay at all. So I just wanted to put that out there. So I did mention the unconscious mind. So the way that our psyche works, we have different levels. We have the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is literally like right now, like I'm operating, I know I'm creating this video, I'm speaking with you. The subconscious mind is a part of us. Like, for example, when you're driving a car, you don't have to be 100% like aware that you're driving. Like there's a part of you that knows that you're driving and like is used to operating a car. So you don't have to be like 100% like, oh, I got to press this or, this button, or I got to move the steering wheel this way. Like your mind, that subconscious mind already knows that you're driving a car. So it operates, it has a system to help you operate. On that level, that are like even breathing, like our unconscious mind knows that we need to breathe. So it just does it. We don't have to really think about it. The unconscious mind is the part in ourselves that we don't get to really see. unless you really start to pay attention. So it's part of what is considered the unknown because we don't know it. We don't know it's there. But only because it's not there, it doesn't mean it, only because we can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not there. And this is where the whole spirituality comes in, because spirituality is all about the unknown, and understanding what's on the other side. And so archetypes also operate on that level. And archetypes, I like to call them as the gateway to the soul, because once you can understand you can understand how archetypes operate, you can start to understand your soul better, and you start to go within. And that's one of the things about the kind of work that I do, and even working with archetypes. Archetypes are not like I wouldn't call them like fluffy type of work, like spiritual work. They're really deep. It's really deep spiritual work where you start to learn to go within yourself. So this work is not for everybody. It's not for people that are just looking to, manifest a car or, change your outer circumstances. Like, it's not just about that. It's literally about learning about yourself on a really profound level, and learning, to connect to this even deeper part of yourself that you didn't even know was there. And to me, that deeper self is what I call God. Again, you can replace God with whatever you want. I use the word God because I feel fine. I feel comfortable using that word. So when you can operate from that level, then your whole reality completely shifts. You see, life differently. You see your own personal life. You see society different. You start to operate from completely different level. You're not necessarily operating from, the ego mind as much, or from, the needs and wants of society. Although you do start to kind of understand how both world works and how to work with them, so that you can create a more balanced life for yourself. So the way that archetypes work, there's 12 main archetypes. And then there's a lot of archetypes, but there's 12 main ones. And those 12 main ones have subcategories. So all the other archetypes fall into the subcategories of those 12 main ones. And so what I do with the work that I do, I help you figure out what your top archetypes are. And then when we do that, whether we're doing spiritual work or we're doing branding work, I help you understand how those archetypes are operating in your life. And I help you become aware of how they're operating in your life, and how to, for example, the archetypes have positive tendencies and negative tendencies. The archetypes themselves are not positive or negative. It's how you use the energy of the archetype that can go into like the positive or the negative. So if you're operating, one of your archetypes is not very balanced, and I can start to see kind of like that is falling into the negative tendencies, which I call the spells. And I call them spells because it's literally like we put ourselves in a spell. We don't realize we're doing that. So when, we can become aware of those, then you can slowly start to shift that spell into magic, what I call magic, which is the positive, to bring more harmony in your life. And one of the things with me that makes me different from other people that work with archetypes, whether they're using archetypes for spiritual reasons or for branding, is that I actually, I'm empathic and I'm an intuitive person. So I pick up on people's archetypes very quickly. You could be literally talking and I can actually hear your archetypes operating. I can hear what archetype is operating at that moment for you. And then through that, I can help you become aware of that archetype and how that archetype communicates and how it's operating in your life. And then if we're using that for branding, then we can use, understanding your archetypes to infuse that knowledge into your brand. Now, one of the things that you want to do with archetypes, that you want to be careful if you ever work with anybody that works in the realm of archetypes. Archetypes, again, Carl Jung said that they have tendencies. And he made it very clear that there are tendencies and that archetypes express uniquely for each person. So for example, like one of my top archetypes is the magician, which I chose. For me, I resonated more with the alchemist, which is one of the subcategories of the magician. So I am an alchemist. I resonate with the alchemist more. So my alchemist archetype is going to express completely different than yours if you have an alchemist archetype. And the reason for that is because each person is unique. Each person has gone through their own experiences in life. Each person may come from a different, race, culture, and all of that plays into our archetype. All of that impacts how our archetypes express themselves. So if you're working with somebody that works in the realm of archetypes, and they have these like standard, like, oh, archetypes, like the magician archetype, does this, this, and that. And if you have, this archetype, if you do this, this, and that, and, this is an absolute, you have to be very careful with that because that's not true. Archetypes express themselves differently and there's tendencies they fall into. So when I have the 12 main archetypes on my website, which I will put below, and what I put on there are literally tendencies that they fall into. It doesn't mean that everything that's on there is how yours is going to express. So you may not resonate with like one or two things about that archetype, but you could still have that archetype really strongly because archetypes are complex. They're not like a really simple thing. So what I do when I work with my clients is I help you figure out your archetypes and I help you understand how they uniquely express themselves in your life. And one of the ways that I do that too is I work with the idea of the hero's journey, which I will make a video about that in a future video. So I help to understand what your journey has been in your life. And I actually can see how the archetypes, your main archetypes are playing into your life, like the patterns that they fall into. And then I can help you see that so that when I've worked with clients before, like when we do this process, it's very transformative and eye-opening because literally you live your life, like you just go through life and you never realize that there's tendencies or patterns that you're falling into and that these archetypes are playing a really strong role. So when I help you see that, it's like completely changes the way you see yourself in a more powerful way. And it just completely changes, yourself. And even if you're building a brand, it changes the way you see your brand and your business. And it helps you to gain more clarity about yourself. And the other thing about archetypes is that you tend to have about 2 to 3 archetypes that can be strongly operating in your unconscious mind and kind of stay there for your whole life. So you tend to have these 2 to 3 archetypes that are strong in your life throughout your whole life. And so again, when I work with my clients to figure out, what type of archetypes, are strong for them, I can see, that's why I can see how they're operating because they've always been there. The other thing about archetypes is that they can change, but again, the ones that are strong tend to stay up there. Like they tend to stay up, like in the between 80 and to 100%. If you wanted to use like a range type thing. Then you can have other archetypes that are kind of helper archetypes and they come in and out of your life as you need them. Sometimes you can have like two or three strong ones and then you have like a few other that are strong after that and then a few other that are, not as strong. But what can happen too is you can have archetypes that when you're going through a phase in your life, they come into your life to help you with that phase. And then as you go through that phase and you end that phase, they kind of are not as strong. I call those emerging archetypes. So for people, for example, that are going to a transformative process in their life, meaning like they're going through some kind of transformation in their life, whether, maybe they've gone through a divorce, whether like, they're going through like a death in the family, or like a really big life-changing experience. Those people can have a really strong magician archetype because the magician archetype is about transformation. And they can also have a rebel archetype because the rebel is also about transformation. But the rebel archetype is more about dissolving what no longer works. And, the magician is more about actually going through that transformative process. So when you can start to understand, how these archetypes work on that profound level, it just makes it a lot easier to create the life that you want to create and to understand the symbolism of them and the symbolism of how they operate in their lives and create more meaning in our lives. So this is one of the main reasons why I chose to work with archetypes, and why I decided to get educated and learn as much as I can. And then, with my clients, work with these specific, I call them guides, because they really create real meaning in our lives. And that's something that we are, as a society, at least here in the US, we don't have a lot of. And so that's why people get strayed. Like they get stuck in superficial stuff, or they get stuck in like having the perfect home, like life, like the perfect home, the perfect marriage, like the perfect car. Again, there's nothing wrong with wanting those things, but when you make that your priority over everything else, there's an imbalance there, because that's actually not healthy or normal, even though we want to make it normal. And that is a very strong indication that that person doesn't have like a real meaning in their life. And it's also why people go through midlife crisis, because at some point you do hit like a roadblock where you start to look at your life and to really see, like, have I really done everything that I've wanted to? Does my life really have meaning? I mean, even in in the whole spiritual world, there's the idea of like, what is the meaning of life? Like, we seek unconsciously for meaning. And archetypes are how we can create meaning for ourselves in a really profound level. So the way that archetypes manifest in the world, they actually, they operate in all aspects of life, whether we realize it or not. And specifically talking about those that are interested about branding, you can see that in brands. For example, Nike has a very strong warrior archetype. Crayola has a very strong creator archetype. Apple has a strong rebel archetype, also creator archetype. And those are just some of the brands that I can think of right off the bat, from in my mind. So when you work with archetypes as a brand, here's what happens. So, for example, let's say, like, for me, my two top archetypes are the alchemist and the creator. And those archetypes are operating really strongly for me. So I'm naturally going to resonate with brands that have either a strong creator or a strong magician or / alchemist, because that's who I am. Like, that's operating in my psyche, in my unconscious mind, whether I realize it or not. If I never knew about, archetypes, like, now that I know, like, that I have those two, and I didn't actually have to know anything about that, like, pretending, I would naturally gravitate towards brands that operate, on that level, that are more like the magician, more of the creator archetype. Or if I'm looking to have more courage in my life, that's the warrior archetype. Then I would naturally gravitate to brands that have more of that warrior energy, right? So that's how brands manifest, how, in the world, like how archetypes manifest in the world. So this is why it's so important, because everything literally is an archetype. And so when you start to work with archetypes, you start to understand why you are gravitating to certain things in your life, because the archetypes that you have are matching the archetypes that you're seeing out in the world. And brands that there's literally big companies that know about the world of archetypes, and they use archetypes to build their brands, and everything about their business is around these archetypes. And some of them use archetypes, but they work with archetypes, but they don't know that they're using archetypes. They just know, like, they go follow the research. So they may be working with the energy, but it's not as strong, because they don't understand the actual energy of that archetype. So this is how powerful this is, because it's literally like whatever archetype that I have will match the archetype that, I'm of the people that I'm looking to connect with. So that kind of brings, it makes you question everything about your life, because it's like you start to kind of see the connection between, like, oh, that's why I like, for me, like, why I like spiritual stuff. That's why I really like to be creative. I also have a strong warrior. Like, that's why, like, I always stand up to bullies. Like, that makes sense. And then when you can understand the psyche of the archetypes and how they can operate and how they're operating in your life individually, that's a whole different level of transformation. That's so important and so vital if you're looking to transform your life literally from the inside out. And if you're looking to transform a brand from the inside out, that's a whole different level of like just transformation and power that you can tap into. And the awesome thing is that it's inside you. You don't get that from anybody. It's something that's inside you. You just have to have somebody to guide you on how that energy works. So this is all I'm going to share for now with the a specific video. There's so much to talk about archetypes that it would take days to literally make a video about that. So I'm going to split everything into little parts because some of the concepts can be a little bit not confusing, but just it's a lot of deep information to process. So I want to make it easy. That's one of my goals with everything that I do, is to make things really practical and easy to understand. So I'm going to keep continuing to make videos. At some point, I will make videos of the 12 main archetypes, and talk more about those, and then talk about how to apply archetypes in your life and how to work with them to transform your life. In the meantime, I did create an awesome test, an archetype. I call it the Archetype Guides Test. So if you take my test, you will find out what one of your top archetypes is. And again, you can have more than one. It could be, I'm going to safely say that up to 3 would be a safe zone. 2 could be, is fine. 3 is like, okay, after 3, it's like, okay, that's too many top ones. Like there's, if somebody has that many, then they're not really being honest when they take, these kind of tests, with themselves. So this test will basically help you understand what one of your top archetypes is. And then you'll receive a beautiful, profile, about that archetype that I designed for you. And then that profile, you'll receive more information about that specific archetype and how to work, like kind of beginning steps to start to work with that archetype. And if you're looking to work with that archetype to create a brand, it also gives you information about that. And these are profiles that I created, like simple profiles. At some point, I am creating some extensive profiles that go way more into depth. But I'm not there yet. At some point, I will share that, and I will let you know. But in the meantime, if you are curious to know what your top archetype is, definitely click on the link below and take that test. And post below in this video what you got, because I'm excited to see what archetype you received, and how that information that you received helped you. In my next video, I'm actually going to go through the process of taking the test and also talking a little bit about the profiles for those that are more interested or curious about what each part of the section means. So thank you so much for watching, and remember, please to like my video and subscribe to help me grow my channel, and I will see you next time. Bye.